Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to the first Boston Ballet Chamber Music series in virtual format. Our first two events will focus on the remarkable 19th century composer Fanny Mendelssohn, specifically on one of her major piano compositions called The Year. It's a remarkable, unusual piece consisting of 12 movements, one for each month of the year. Before we hear it, though, let me share a little bit of information about Fanny Mendelssohn and her family. Fanny was born in 1805 into a very well-to-do Berlin family. Her much more famous brother, Felix Mendelssohn, was born 4 years later. Both of their parents were really obsessed with educating their children, and they spared no expense. So they hired some of the very finest to teach their kids at home. For instance, the famous musician Karl Friedrich Zelter and the noted philosopher Karl Heise came to their house to teach Fanny and Felix every week. The equivalent in the US in the 20th century would be, let's say, if Leonard Bernstein and Noam Chomsky came to your house to teach your kids every week. Not too bad. Both children showed exceptional talent early on, particularly in music. However, Abraham Mendelssohn decided early on that Felix was destined for a public career, while Fanny was expected to stay home and take care of her family. The reasons for this were complex. Abraham Mendelssohn decided to convert from Judaism to Protestantism, in part to seek cultural assimilation and seek greater acceptance in the higher echelons of Berlin society. With that, of course, came the desire to really adhere to the strict cultural norms of that time. As Felix began his meteoric rise as both conductor and composer throughout Europe, Fanny remained home and became better as a composer, but she did not seek a public career. She became married to a man by the name of Wilhelm Hensel, who was a painter and an important artist in his own right. He, in fact, was actually a lot more supportive of Fanny's artistic ambitions than the rest of her family. Which brings us to the piece that you'll hear today. In 1840, Fanny Mendelssohn and her husband Wilhelm and their young son Sebastian undertook a year-long journey to Italy. This was kind of a cultural, educational trip that was quite customary in Europe amongst their intelligentsia in the 19th century. The main goal of the trip was Rome, and they spent there many months exploring the cultural treasures and making new artistic friends. In this performance, we decided to pair each movement with excerpts from her letters and diaries. They're funny, witty, spirited, irreverent, and poetic. They include personalities such as the famous French composer Charles Gounod, who became an admirer of Fanny's artistry, as well as the painter Dominique Ingres, who was the director of the French Academy in Rome at that time. We hope that you'll enjoy these performances and Fanny's artistry as much as we did in the course of preparing for this project. Thank you so much for joining us at Boston Ballet's Chamber Music series.
At last, we have reached safely this important point of our journey, Rome. And for some time now, we pilgrims may lay aside our walking sticks. We arrived here at 10 o'clock the day before yesterday. Only think. We are sitting around a fire in our comfortable lodgings with all our arrangements completed. Rome is empty this time of year. The whole world has gone to Naples, and the rest are left lamenting. Nature and time converted the imposing buildings of the Romans into heaps of ruins, the charms of which, however, are unparalleled. They are now digging away and bringing to light pillars, walls, and pavements, but there is much still buried, and the green grass is fast covering what has been so lately exposed. The part above ground, however, remains a silent observer of this age, as it has been for so many before. We are still in the full tide of the merry carnival, and I am far more amused with it than I expected. I need not enter on a formal description, for Goethe took that trouble off my hands 50 years ago. Not only the principal features, but even many of the masks have remained unaltered since then. The whole scene is one of utter madness. The Prince of Syracuse, brother of the King of Naples, hired a balcony and poured down such inexhaustible streams of flour, yes, flour that you bake with, that it was hardly possible to pass his corner. But a young Roman nobleman, who had specially suffered from his pelting, had confetti made in the shape of macaroni, and used those for his revenge the next day, which, they say, so annoyed the Neapolitan macaroni eater that he behaved much better since. Do you recognize your daughter, dear mother, frolicking away for hours in the midst of this turmoil? And in a noise which can be compared to neither the roaring of the sea nor the howling of wild beasts, being like nothing but itself. The different missiles, confetti, sugar plums large and small, and bouquets are generally returned in kind. Sebastian was quite indignant with me the other day for sending a bouquet in reply to a volley of confetti, because I happened to have nothing else at hand. Altogether, a good many people, especially strangers, treat the things without any grace and find their amusement in the quantity and hardness of the materials, which they shower down from a safe distance 2 or 3 stories above. Even from quite near, you can get a sharp volley in the face. But everyone is mad enough, or sensible enough, to take no offense, but try and revenge themselves in the best way possible. Such mad proceedings in the most sober-minded city in the world really form a remarkable contrast. During our dinner, we met a Frenchman named Vernet. In the course of the conversation, Wilhelm brought up his intense longing to experience the Middle East and how difficult it is for him and his family to make this dream a reality. Vernet looked quite bewildered, and he said it would only take him a fortnight to get there. A Frenchman's light way of looking at life and bending outward circumstances to his own will is most catching. For a moment, all difficulties and obstacles disappeared before my eyes, and I urged Wilhelm, in all sincerity, to take us back to Trieste and embark on this dream journey. But his deliberate arguments soon convinced me of the impossibility of the whole thing. René's energy and spontaneity have enabled him to realize what has long been the dream of our life. There lies the future of art, and Wilhelm would have accomplished so much more if he had only had the power to carry out his ideas. But we Germans always have to wait, always have to let the right moment pass, always come too late. We cannot cut ourselves loose from the ties of home and family, to say nothing of our own individuality. The whole matter absorbs and moves me deeply. Yesterday was Good Friday, and we made our way to the Sistine Chapel early in the morning, since I was afraid I would not be admitted without a ticket. I secured a seat in the front row. The attendant allowed a few ladies to go close to the railings, so I saw all the ceremony perfectly this time. I came to the conclusion that the adoration of the cross is one of the finest. The Passion was sung first. The arrangement is, broadly speaking, the same as adopted by Bach. The part of Jesus was sung by a fine bass, the Evangelist by a rather harsh baritone. The music for the choruses is by Vittoria, and these short passages in 4 vocal parts are the most important as a refreshment after the incredibly monotonous delivery of the Passion. On Easter Sunday, we attended the big Mass at St. Peter's in the morning, and I admit that the crowded church and the infinite variety of costumes made it a wonderful spectacle. The whole ceremony is very magnificent and very amusing. There is a grand display of uniforms, civil, military, and clerical, and the scene altogether conveys the idea of a play acted for the benefit of strangers. Women are treated much better at St. Peter's compared to the chapel. Indeed, quite the reverse, for they have the best seats on a raised tribune, from where they can see and be seen. In consequence, they display themselves in many colored bonnets and feathers, instead of the black veils supposed to be obligatory, of which I did not see a single one. I could not help but think how astonished St. Peter himself would be if he were here to come and see the pomp and display. Now that everything is green outside, it is perfectly delightful to get out of the streets and into the country. In the evening, some people dropped in, and I played, much to dissipate the dullness profusely distributed by some English ladies. After they left, I began again, but more beautifully, and I played until midnight. Our friends make my task difficult, for they never forget a single thing I've played, even if it was months ago. A more approving audience would be impossible to find. And Gounod is such an enthusiast in music as I have seldom seen. He likes my Venetian piece very much, as well as one in B minor that I have composed here. I compose a great deal now, for nothing inspires me more than praise, while censure discourages and depresses me. On Saturday evening, we had a long debate, which lasted far into the night, as to whether we should prolong our stay here through next winter. But in the morning, good sense and sound judgment prevailed. While walking in the villa gardens, we decided to reward ourselves by staying at least a few more months. Like the famous drunkard, after safely passing 3 gin shops, he gives up on his resolution in the 4th. It will cost us both a hard struggle to leave Rome. I could not believe that it would have made such a deep impression on me. I must confess that the atmosphere of admiration and homage in which I have been living here may have something to do with it. For even at a young age, I was never made so much of as I have been here. Nobody can deny that is very pleasant.